What's going on, guys? Coach Gaglione here. It's another edition of the Powerlifting for the People podcast. I'm your host, Coach Gaglione. We got a special treat for you guys. We got Mark Greenstein, formerly known as Hot Moose, one of my kind of original kind of training partners, both Plain Edge alumni. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of your iron cred, and then we'll kind of like jump right into it. But Mark's best lifts, 1,900 pound total in the 220 weight class raw. I did a 730 squat, a 475 bench, a 695 deadlift, and then also an 1825 total in the 198 division. And at the time, that was fifth in the world. And then best title of, Raw Unity lightweight champion back in 2015. So I just wanted to kind of, shout out those pretty cool. That was kind of 2011, 2012 was kind of like when Raw kind of got started. And you were definitely like one of those early kind of pioneers, especially like in our system. So if there's anything kind of I missed or anything else that you want to kind of just let the listeners know a little bit about like who you are and what you got going on, we can
All
kind of
right, so
right into
I
it.
started we started lifting probably like in high school doing football, but it was like not really like lifting like I guess as intensely as I would like to have been. Took off when I went to college. I started back when I was like I would say 22-ish. I started going just to LA Fitness. Um, I always like to just lift heavy. I was like back in my 20s, I was lifting in the fives at most. So I was always pounding weights. Um, I shamefully, I mean, I don't know if it's a shamefully. It's a good fitness. I did CrossFit for like 6 months. I figured like this ain't for me,
You
throwing weights
definitely
over my head and
you
everything.
definitely got your chops busted a little bit for that, but
Yeah,
no shade, no shade, because like I said, it's definitely impressive. And then so I guess like at that time, I know so like at that time was probably like 2012 to 2013. You were
right.
kind of like obviously like kind of you had that football background. You always were athletic, and then kind of our mutual. I've been trying to get Big Dom on the horn as well. He's a little bit busier and hard to get a hold of, but hopefully we'll get him soon. So that's kind of like our mutual because Big Dom, like I said, hopefully we'll get a chance to talk with him. Um, we did like Dom did his first meet with me. I think he had around like a 1,500 total. And for those that are not familiar with Big Dom, he was our first 2,000 pound raw total, which was fantastic. And at the time, less than 200 people ever in history have done it. So it was like it's still a big deal, but it was a really big deal at the time. Um, so I know that you kind of started to tag along. I know there was like when we were still in Syosset at the wrestling club, we did like
Right.
almost like kind of strongman competition, which was fun. So we were kind of like training together like here and there, but it wasn't like super
Right.
consistent until we got to Farmingdale. So I don't know if it was maybe something maybe Dom kind of twisted your arm a little bit. Like what I guess gave you the inkling that maybe like I kind of really like the barbell stuff a little bit more. Like what gave you the inkling that maybe you wanted to start to kind of switch gears from a little bit more of like strength endurance to like pure powerlifting? Because I know that you were kind of doing a little bit, you liked doing overhead press and stuff like that. So was there like a conversation that maybe you had with Dom or anyone, or were you just kind of interested seeing, everyone kind of, we had Richie Rizzo's another guy. Maybe I can get him, another plain edge guy. So there was kind of like a group of us, and obviously all of the, the Minichi clan was lifting.
Yeah, right, yeah. So me and Dom, um, we were close friends, really, really close friends back then in our early 20s. Um, he saw I was doing CrossFit. He's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" Um, you could probably squat like 600, 700 pounds. So I said, "All right, I'm gonna try it. Let me just try one meet. If I don't like it, I'll do so. I'll just keep lifting, whatever it is." So we end up doing a training cycle. That training cycle was I don't know. That was so long ago. I know it was us three definitely. I don't know if the other guys like Sandy and Lusty was there yet,
Yeah, it was kind
but
of. I'd have to like look at like the open powerlifting, but I know that we were kind of like probably the main crew, because I know like with Sandy especially, and even so, Lustarina was still kind of chasing football dreams. I think at
right, yeah, yeah, he was doing like puff football, yeah,
and and then Sandy, like he always again again no shade to him either whatever, but he always kind of liked to have like a little bit more of like a snowflake program that was a little bit more specialized to him.
right, yeah,
So at the time, Jesse Burdick was my coach and mentor, and we kind of just and then sometimes we had like forearms Vidal and then Prush was still lifting like a maniac as well. So we had like a good group of like five guys. I would say that we kind of were regularly training together. And it was just kind of good. Like, and some of us, like I said, like for, you were always pretty well rounded. Dom was always one of the stronger people. I was, always cheating with the equipment, trying to, lift the most. But it
Yeah,
was,
that shit is
it was
annoying.
kind of good to like kind of push each other. So, and then again, when I knew that, at your first meet, you hit an elite total, you hit at 1675. So it was a pretty, pretty darn good start
Yeah.
for raw lifting. And like I said, a lot of people weren't doing that at the time. But so what was it kind of like going from, so I know CrossFit, if they do anything well, it does have that kind of that group dynamic. What was kind of different about, especially on those max effort days when we might be getting under, and sometimes we would use a little bit more variation than I typically do now, but we might be doing a box squat, or we might be doing a bunch of chains, or sometimes we don't do this anymore. We did a lot of crazy stuff where like sometimes we'd start from the
We did a
bottom
lot of speed training too that first
and
cycle.
speed work.
I
So what was
remember
it
just
like?
like jumping off the box.
Yeah, so what was so that was so it was kind of purely kind of conjugate. So let's just go through like each, because I think each day, because I know you had a good comment about speed work, but we'll go to the max effort day first. So when we were going to doing the heavier work, what was kind of like the I guess the vibe like, or the intensity like training with like the crew when you were kind of getting started?
I know for me, I was definitely focused. Like you got to go into the gym and you got to. I mean, you almost got to be willing to get hurt back then. When you get underneath that bar, you have to trust your spotters. But when we were going on heavy days, everyone was focused, like on the lifts, like everyone, and cool on depth, and it wasn't really like a rah rah thing. It was more like intensity, like a mental intensity, I'd say. No one was screaming or doing anything crazy. Just the vibe was intense.
It was serious. And one of the things, so at the time, like I was teaching still, and we always would joke, because we would always train at 7 o'clock. We always would joke that you don't know what goes on after seven. That was kind of like some of the things. And and again, for what it was worth, I think a lot of us, I think that we kind of we started to have a little bit of like a friendly rivalry with some other gyms, like Coliseum Gym.
Right.
There was a bunch of other gyms, so it kind of like we were kind of always doing things to kind
Dominating.
of motivate
We
ourselves.
dominated everybody.
Yeah, we were always trying to like kind of talk a little smack and try to, but I think that really kind of elevated us and helped a lot. We kind of over the years, I think and I think Big Dom actually, there was one meet I remember, I think when he hit his first 2000, I think we like won, like, so Gene had a competition, rest in peace, baddest gym on Long Island, which was a really cool like title. And we won that a few times. And so that was pretty cool. And like, and listen, the Coliseum Gym and stuff, they kind of produced guys like Kevin Oak and stuff. And then eventually kind of Larry, Wheels came to train with us as well. So I mean, they were like had some really good heavy hitters. Some of the names are kind of
Valone,
yeah,
Valen,
he's still yeah.
and
So he
Mikey Monster, whatever it was.
yeah. There's a couple of maniacs over there.
Yeah,
Those guys.
they were
So
maniacs. They were the rah
um,
rah crew.
so it was kind of cool that we had like a good like little rivalry going, and it wasn't just you know we had that kind of team element, even though like powerlifting is an individual sport, because that's something
Right.
that gets caught up a lot. So that was kind of like how the max effort work days were. That was kind of, we were kind of going in, we were competitive with ourselves, but we also kind of almost had, I don't know if hit list is the right word, but we had kind of had our sights that we're going to take these guys out, and we were going to like be the best team. Another thing that we would always say is, because the teams were like the way that the team competitions work was by formula, and it was five. So we would always say like our five first, year five, and then we're always going to come up on top, and that's kind of how the team competitions worked. But I want to I'm getting excited. I'm getting ahead of myself. So talking about the training, so that's the max effort work was kind of one vibe where we were trying, like you said, like you weren't really thinking about missing. You were just thinking about like I'm going to get this up like by any means necessary, and it was really about straining. And then on the speed days, kind of the approach was different, where we were kind of going at a pretty aggressive, like, so it might be like, sometimes we would be, say, put 500 pounds on the bar for like a deadlift, and it'd be like, okay, like Prush is going to go, Mark's going to go, I'm going to go, Dom's going to go. And we would kind of just kind of cycle through, and we almost to the point where we're pushing each other like out of the way. And we were going to see like who's going to move the weight the fastest, who's going to move the weight the fastest with the best technique. So what was your kind of, I guess, approach on speed day, and like how do you think that kind of helped you in terms of like harnessing? Because you were always an explosive athlete, and I think that was kind of something you used to your advantage. Because if you even now, like again, if you look at your legs and stuff, they're not like super developed, but you always had that like speed, and I think that really helped you in your squat and in your pulls. So, what were those kind of like dynamic days like for you, and what was kind of, I guess, different in your mental approach to those days?
A speed day would be much more fun. Like it wasn't as intense. We joke around a little bit, like you said, it would be more of like a friendly competition, like who could move it the fastest. And you'd always try to outdo it, the next guy, and you try to outdo yourself because at the end of the day, powerlifting's about outdoing yourself every time. We joke around, and then uh, the accessory work was really fun too. But the heavy days was the crazy days. But speed and accessories, we used to have shits and giggles.
Yeah, a little bit more like of a relaxed kind of vibe, and like
Yeah,
your intent was like different. Um, so I do want to, and just let me know like when you're kind of short on time. I do want to kind of go over a couple of things. So
sure.
at the time, so since you hit an elite total like early on, I think yeah, it was you and Vidal and forearms did Raw Unity 7.
7, yeah, that's
Raw
when
Unity
that was
7
that was the craziest one.
was wild because you had
Yeah,
Andre Milanichev squatting the first 10-14, walked out, dunked, flying over from Russia. That was crazy. You had Dan Green hit like I
yeah,
think like a 2100 total. I heard like rumors that he like came down from 260 to make 220. It was like all this great crazy stuff. But Dan Green was like in his prime. That was really cool. Animal sponsored the event. That was pretty epic. And then you had some lifters that a lot of people don't know about anymore. But you had people like Caitlin Trout, who was she like was doing like close to 1,000 pound total at like
right,
123. So she was like a pioneer for like the women. Um, Matt Wenning he switched over to Raw for a bit. He had a world record squat. I believe he might have even benched 600 at that meet. I have to check, but so anyways, we met a lot of great people, and then at that time, that was a really good networking event for us. But also, we kind of got our asses handed to us a little bit that meet. So it kind of humbled us as well. So
right,
then we kind of went back to the drawing board, and then we were like, oh, maybe we could like, and we had no idea like how to cut weight. We didn't know, like, we were kind of like, oh, maybe if you drop a weight class, you could be more competitive.
yeah.
But anyways, you ended up having an unbelievable. So if you have time, I'd like you to maybe, if you could recap the. So we did the qualifier on Long Island. It was one of Mendelssohn's meets, and then you did Raw,
Right. Yeah, that
and
was
then
the
you ended
clip
up,
that the hotel over here.
and then you ended up doing Raw Unity 8, and then after that there was a Raw Unity 9. It kind of started to fizzle out after that, but at the time, Raw Unity essentially was like the Super Bowl of powerlifting, and that really kind of you had guys like Larry started to come on the scene, Dan
Right,
Green was on the scene, Matt Wenning was still lifting, so like there was a lot of in my opinion, like those were the meets that really kind of drove powerlifting to like what it is now. But I
probably.
digress. So we had this bright idea, maybe that you could be have an all time record, and maybe like, oh, if you just like lose 20 pounds, and but
Yeah,
like we so
let's
anyway.
lose 20 pounds in a day.
So what was like, now we're like getting a little bit more serious. Now you're competing at a national level. So, and I remember it was really cool because Super D, Donnie Thompson, Mr. 3000,
Right, right. He
was like
judged the competition.
he was like on the mic, and like he was like, oh, he's like, do you guys know that this is like fifth in the world? And I'm like, thanks, Don, because we were just trying to like get you the best total you could. But what was it like, kind of like, I guess, when you were kind of well, first of all, you hit your first 700 squat, which was kind of crazy. So
705. Yeah,
what was that like meet like, as far as, because I mean you had a really like kind of stars aligning day. So kind of walk us through that, and then we'll kind of go into like the Raw Unity prep.
right. So we decided we were going to go from 225 to 198 in 2 days. So that wasn't the toughest cut. Raw Unity 8 was the toughest cut,
That
but
was
that cut kicked my ass. But I recovered very well from that cut. I went and had sushi that night. I remember
yeah, and
the sushi was fantastic.
I don't know if you remember. So I went down also because I was still pretty pudgy back then, and we sat in the sauna together. So I don't know if that like helped you or not, but I know I went down to 275. I was
Right,
290 ish, and I know you. So like we kind of did that. So that was kind of cool that we got a chance to do that together. So that was like my first meet at 275, and I was going for a 2000 total, and then just the head judge didn't want to give me a down. I was trying for I needed a 650 pull. I think I got it really close to
Right,
lockout.
I remember that.
Lock it out. But you had a really good day. So I think we had sushi, and then I think we also had Italian food. So we might have overdid it a
Yeah,
little bit, but we definitely got our weight back up.
yeah. I think I lifted at 222 or something like that day. So I went from 198 the morning before to 222. So
That was
that
pretty
was that was nice lifting that weight. But I recovered very well because it was we were home, so I was able to sleep at home and do everything
local
at home.
show. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So we came in, getting warmed up. I don't remember my first two attempts fly. So we're like, let's go, let's try it. Let's push it. It's 705. I mean, it was a good lift. That was one of my best lifts. That one of those, yeah,
yeah.
make it or break it lifts.
Yeah, and that was I think like everyone has their like that was like I think your stars aligning meet. I think everything
Yeah.
was kind of clicking on that particular day. You seemed like it didn't matter like what was on the bar. Like you were kind of gonna pick it up.
Focus. I was in the zone. I was just there. I was living the moment, and then I hit the squat. People are coming to me saying, that was pretty crazy, this and that. So we hit the bench. No one really cares about bench unless you're benching over like 600 pounds. So I think I benched what, like 440 that
Yeah,
day.
440. Yeah,
Yeah,
440.
something like that.
And that's still so over like double body weight, which is still which is great.
Yeah, after a big cut like that was pretty good. I could have done better, but then we come up to the deadlift. I don't know what my second pull looked like crap. Prush comes up to me and goes, "Yo, do you want to even take a third? That looked like shit, bro." I'm like, "What I pull 680 that day?"
Yeah, you
I'm like,
ended up pulling six.
let's get
So
let's
I
get fifth
think
all
so
time."
that's when like Donnie was kind of getting in our ears a little bit because I was also that was like one time, and this is I learned from my mistakes. So like, kind of after that meet and just kind of moving forward, I just didn't really lift with you guys like much anymore, unless it was like more of like a fun meet.
Right, right, right. I
I
remember.
was I was a little bit trying. I was trying to get my head out of my ass. You were trying to get your head out of your ass, and then Super
Right.
D was like, "Hey, uh, if you pull this, you're going to be fifth all time," which is pretty. We were like, "Oh." So we're like, I guess so that's when I think Prush was really good at calling numbers too. So that's when we elected to go 680, and then we have that epic, photo of you kind of with your hands up, and it was really
Yeah,
cool. It was just,
yeah. The crowd was going
it was
crazy.
going
Like,
nuts.
it was nice.
Well,
It
because
was good.
also
It was a
too,
good time.
at the time, like most people that were doing those kinds of numbers were wearing suits. Like no one was
Right,
really doing that like raw at the time. Like that was like people were like, "Do you have something under your singlet? Like, is this like?" And especially to do it at like under 200 pounds, like weight cut or not. So like again, people like I know that there's people doing that now, and then eventually like the person that ended up kind of putting the world record out of reach was, if you guys remember Jesse Norris. Jesse Norris hit that was that famous like 2000, which is again still like disgusting. But
right.
anyways, 1825 was fifth at the world at the time. We decided we wanted you to get stronger, so you kind of bulked up a bit, which in hindsight maybe like we could have kept your weight down a little bit, but you did a 1900. So basically, we were like, hey, like we just need to kind of try to maintain as much strength as we can. But obviously, like one of the things that weight cutting, traveling, judging standard, just more pressure.
Right.
Like you had like other like guys that you were kind of going against. Um, so but you ended up kind of doing what you needed to do. It wasn't a perfect day by any means. I know, like I think you missed, you missed a bunch of deadlifts. You missed your last bench, but for those
I
that
think I only hit my. I think I only in Raw Unity 8. I think I only hit my opener on
you
my
only
bench.
got your well, I think yeah, you hit two benches and you only hit your opener deadlift, which
Oh, I guess that would happen. Right.
so
Yeah, I
in
felt like shit. It
hindsight,
was a bad cut.
I remember like I don't know if you remember. So like it was kind of like again love you Richie if you end up listening to this, but like Richie Rizzo, I think like he flew in at like midnight. It was like there was a lot like we couldn't like find him, so it was
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember that.
I'm
Yeah.
a lot more like organized now with coaching and stuff. So I was still, and this was really like we even though we did Raw Unity the year before, it's a lot different handling two guys. There was this girl Ashlyn at the time who was doing
Yeah, I
really well.
remember actually.
We
Yeah.
had like a whole like team there. Um, and then so there was a lot. It was just a lot more moving parts. So again, in hindsight, I think like if I could implant my brain now to back then, I think that potentially done much better, especially with the weight cut and everything else. But for those that maybe were not around at that time, like what was it like lifting at Raw Unity, and what did it mean to you to like, achieve that title? Because that was a big deal, and it was a little bit harder than we had originally had planned, but you still came out with the W. You still got the best lifter for lightweights. And I don't know if you know this or not, but my man Mark has a head-to-head over John Hack, who's like in the conversation for the GOAT and stuff. So, anyways, there was a lot of amazing lifters at that meet. And the fact that, like I said, Mark, he, was ahead of, people like, I'm just going to, yeah. So Mark was ahead of John Hack by a few spots. I don't know if you know Anthony Hibacha, who's got all time. So you have like head to head wins against guys that ended up, moving on and breaking all time records and stuff. So I'm not sure if you even know that or not, but there was a
No, I
handful of
don't.
guys. There was a handful of guys that you have. Joe Sullivan, you beat as well. Ernie Lillibridge Jr. you were ahead of in points. Jordan Wong you were ahead of in points. I mean, you have some like wins over like some very notable guys um, that a lot of people would recognize in terms of their names and stuff. And at that time, there was over 100 people at that meet. And even with and combined with the heavyweights, you were like, and then in the heavyweight division, you had like Dan Green, Kevin Oak, Dan Bell. These are household names uh,
Right.
at winning. So, anyways, what was it like lifting at that meet? John Rivas, I think that yeah he was, and then eventually he broke the 242 record, and then Larry ended up, getting it back from him. So what was it like lifting at that meet, and what did it mean to you to achieve that title?
So I, of course, cut again. That was my second cut. That cut was much more difficult because we were away and I remember I was in the sauna. I couldn't really handle the sauna too long. So we brought it back to the house. I got a rubber suit. I was sitting in the rubber suit for a while in the car. That was dropping weight. And then I ended up in the bathtub in Epsom salt after that. I didn't sleep that much.
No.
We get into I think Prush is driving me around in the car. We stop at a random parking lot. There's a scale on the trunk. I jump on the scale. I'm like 199 or something like that. So, and this is like right before the weigh-in. So we're like, it just worked out perfect. So after the weigh-in, I'm in the car driving away. Oh, I started crying a little bit because it was one of the hardest things I ever did in my life, like physically. That cut really, really was like bad. It was a bad cut. We came back. We were staying in an Airbnb. It was a whole bunch of us, so it was a lot of moving parts and everything.
It was a little crazy. I think.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
And then we all go out to dinner. I can't hold down my food that night, this and that. We had the early session with the lightweight, so we
Yeah,
were
you were in the
in the
morning.
morning. I take my opener squat, it's good, and then we come back with like a 7-11 squat. And I go down and I start coming back up, and someone grabs the weight off my back, and I start freaking out. So they ended up giving me a second, they ended up giving me a redo. But there's no redos. How many times can you lift 700
Yeah,
pounds? So
that's
take seven,
yeah, that's kind of like the issue.
take
Is
seven.
that it's still like taking energy, and I kind of like
Yeah,
it kind of like your back is still kind of having to absorb that weight, which kind
right.
of.
So I ended up hitting the 711 on the second attempt, which was really my third attempt.
And that
We-
that you needed to hit that. Like if you didn't hit that,
Right,
then like you would have been like
I was.
you would
The
have
kid Brad would have beat me. So I hit that. We come back. I guess I hit two benches or something. Maybe just
yeah,
my
you
bench
ended up
opener.
yeah, you ended up with 446, and then I think you missed like 450 something like narrowly. But like we were just trying to like, okay, we need to like kind of
Chip away, yeah.
need to like get ahead, and then like we kind of in hindsight, like I said, I think something was because I remember Richie Rizzo like almost like he was like not around for like his opening bench or something, and
Right, yeah, yeah.
so like I was trying to find him. I think Prush was like warming you up, like he was kind of like um your like kind of handler for the day, like he was kind of staying with you the whole time. So I didn't see a lot. I don't remember even. I don't think I saw any of your warm ups for deadlift. But anyways, I know that you got your opener, and then like I think we made a jump, and then in hindsight, like I said, this was kind of also like at the time, like powerlifting was we didn't there wasn't a lot of meets in kilos, so that was another thing where it's like, oh yeah,
Right.
just do like. So I think it was like 688 or something, and I think you were just smoked. And it was running fast because there was a
Yeah, it was a fast meet. Yeah.
I think it was like less, it was very, very fast. So I know like, but anyways, you can kind of speak a little bit more. But the opening deadlift was like enough to like, salvage the day.
Right.
Luckily, so like luckily your squat kind of carried you, and like luckily, like I said, so in hindsight, um, it was you got it. You made the weight. It wasn't like a perfect scenario, and I think that this is where like I started to learn, and this is something I try to communicate with our athletes now. When you're at an event like that, you're not necessarily going for a PR total. You're going to like win. You're going for placing. So like you were a little bit like under your all-time PR, but you did like what you needed to do to like win best lifter for the lightweights. And that's kind of where some people may argue that or not, but like I was watching like the World Games this weekend, and it's like, if you kind of overextend yourself and then you're like off podium, or like what's the point? It's not like worth the risk.
Right.
So it wasn't like the best like total, but you did what you had to do. You made the weight. You won the head-to-head battles, and like I said, not many people could say that you had a higher Wilks score than John Hack. You had a higher Wilks score than Anthony Hobacha. You had a higher Wilks score than Joe Sullivan. And yes, they were younger, but still, like I said, if so, I think that's for a very kind of like meteoric rise and like a short kind of powerlifting career, I think he did fantastic. So again, I want to be mindful of time, and I think this is. So I just want to kind of. So I think that. So I just want to kind of
Yeah.
like.
I got 5 minutes.
Yeah, so I want to kind of just fast forward like up until now, and then if you have any advice for younger lifters. So we got a session in together like recently, which was great, and I think like that's kind of like where like we're both like not at our physical prime anymore, and like I hate to say that as an athlete because it's you don't want to like have that in your head, but it was a lot of fun to like work out with you, and I think that sometimes like the fact that you're just kind of pushing yourself like those because a lot of the training is different now. So I guess what was it like to like get under the bar with a crew again, and like because I know like for me like that's like always like it kind of gets me going, it gets my juices flowing. So what was it like to kind of come back to the gym and because a lot of people don't have never had that experience. Like what's different than because versus you can go to a gym and just go to a squat rack by yourself, but like what's
Yeah.
different about training with the crew?
Uh, what was the big guy's name? I was trying to keep up with him.
Yeah, you got Big John, and he was like he really
Yeah. So I'm trying to, and this is the first time I've been in the gym in probably what 10 years. So
yeah
people see the numbers on the wall, but they never seen the man.
yeah yeah
So they
yeah
get to see
yep
the man this time.
yeah yeah
So I had to put on for everybody. I wasn't gonna just 2 plates. I had to push myself to look like who I should be. But it's definitely fun training with people, especially people that push you and you have somewhat of a brotherhood with, and it's fun to look stronger for everybody too. So if you could get a crew together and you could train with a couple guys, it's well worth it. And the only thing you got to try to keep away from is a little bit of the drama. A lot of people you tend to get a lot of drama, so I try to stay away from all that.
You were always
This one, that,
you were always good with
yeah, it
there
was
was a
more
lot of
annoying than
there was a lot of
entertaining.
there was a lot of personalities that we used
Yeah,
to.
yeah. So if you guys can keep your personalities in check for a good hour and a half, 2 hours, you could get some good work in, and you should definitely get stronger and bigger because I like living life strong and big.
All right, awesome, man. Yeah, that we'll definitely have to kind of catch up again. I think this was
Yeah,
great.
definitely.
Any kind of parting words, and if people like if you want to plug your new Instagram, if you want to see,
Sure,
if
sure.
you want to
Well,
learn how to work your back arm or your front shoulder, or,
if you
or
want to look strong, honestly, I don't even know how to flex. So I'm sitting there trying to take photos for my new Instagram page for me.
I'll show you some of my bodybuilding
So I'm
routine.
sitting down trying to flex out my back. I'm like, God damn, I know my back's bigger than this, but whatever. I got to put something up. So I got to figure out how to flex a little bit more. But my new Instagram page is 40NSTILL_lifting, 40 and still lifting. I put a lot of aesthetical stuff that I like having big shoulders, big triceps. In my current work, my line of duty, my line of what I do now is it's kind of good to be a little bit more intimidating. I think in life it's good to be more intimidating. Weird things happen to bigger people, you know. A lot, people see a bigger guy walking in, you tend to get a little bit more attention. Um, and sometimes you get a little bit more extra, like whatever it is, maybe. Um, but I suggest lifting heavy to everybody because strength, I think, strength versus endurance, there's no comparison. When you got to be strong and you are just good at endurance, you're never going to be strong. But you could endure a lot more when you have a lot of strength, especially in your core. So if you're starting off, I would suggest really working on your core the most and trying to get that stability more than the look. I think that's the most important part of your body in powerlifting and lifting in general. And you don't have to go every day to the gym. You just got to get to the gym 3 days a week. But when you're at the gym, you're gonna have to push yourself
Hard. It's gotta be
because
hard.
you're never gonna get anywhere. Either whether if you're powerlifting or if you're trying to go on a hike or this and that, you're never gonna get anywhere unless you push yourself. I think that's true in life in all aspects of life. So if you're not willing to, I mean, if you're willing to do stuff, go there and just do it. Whatever, stay out of the guys' ways that's trying to get better themselves every day.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you coming on. Yeah, and I totally agree. I think it's like important. I think one of the things, as far as how we train, like you get the show and the go, and I think it's good to have
Right, right,
a
yeah,
little bit of both. I think that's like kind of important, and I do think like you're gonna have like a different confidence. Like now, like again, like what I'm kind of seeing with some of the younger lifters is that they are so like technical, like their lifts like really pretty, but they're like no disrespect, they're kind of soft. They're kind of soft physically, and they're kind of soft mentally, and they might like do well on a powerlifting platform, but man, it's like I'm sorry, like I'm just not.
right,
It's just different when when you carry yourself differently, when you have that extra muscle mass, when you and kind of the way we train too. Like we didn't always just train the competition lifts. Like sometimes we get strong with like weird movements, like good mornings and stuff like that. And it's like no one wants to do a heavy good morning, but
no,
like if you're able to be strong in like a bad position, like you're a bad mofo, and that's gonna like carry over to when you're
right,
in a hard situation. Like if you're always worried about things being so like perfect. So
right, right,
that's where the dynamic days were more like, we worked on our technique, we worked on our speed. The max effort days was like, who's going to be king of the mountain? Who's going to be the baddest in the rack? And I think that's like important to challenge yourself and healthy competition. And like I said, we weren't just rah rah. We wanted to do things technically. Like if someone was like if I was squatting high or whatever, people be like, hey, like you're
right,
you're being a bitch. You got to get lower, or, whatever. And it's that's just kind of it was a little bit more of a rough environment, but I think that's why like everyone excelled. But I
right.
appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we can kind of link up again when I'm back in Strong Island. But yeah, I appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you guys. If you
John,
guys,
thanks.
yeah,
Had
if
a
you
great
guys,
time.
yeah, awesome. If you guys enjoyed the podcast, please share it. Please give it a 5-star review. Give Mark a follow. Until next time, stay
Thanks.
strong, and we'll see you
All
soon.
right, have a good one, Joe.